Hey everybody, this is our second lecture for our stress, health, and lifestyle chapter. We're going to just take a look at some different types of stressors and the cost of stress. We're going to look at stressors, traumatic events, life changes, hassles, and other stressors. When we think about stressors, we usually put them into two different categories: chronic stressors or acute stressors. Chronic stressors are things that are ongoing. They persist over a long period of time. Acute stressors are things that are short term and we can see an end to it. Examples that are given on the slide here is long-term employment is a chronic stressor, and falling and breaking your leg, something like that, is a short-term stressor because there is a closing date on that. In other words, you know it's going to be short-term and it's going to be resolved. Traumatic events are one category of stressors that are that have a different effect on different people. So this would be exposure to actual or threatened death or serious injury. So in other words, for a traumatic event, you'd be in a situation where you have experienced that you are going to die, that something is going to seriously happen to you, you're going to be seriously injured or seriously die. You can also experience the secondhand, but for right now, we're just going to talk about firsthand accounts here. That's like exposure to military combat, being threatened or physically assaulted by somebody, having a physical attack, a sexual attack, childhood abuse, being robbed, having your home robbed, things like that. Being involved as a victim of a terrorist attack, or being involved in some type of natural disaster, or being in a car accident. Stresses of this type can cause people to develop post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, this disorder is only developed in about 33% of people who experience traumatic events. Not everybody who has trauma and goes through traumatic events is going to develop PTSD. Only about 33% of those who experience this type of trauma develop PTSD. It's a chronic stress reaction, including intrusive and painful memories, jumpiness, or persistent negative emotional states, among other symptoms. So this is a particular psychological disorder or a mental disorder that we are going to talk about in the next chapter. So I'll be doing a video on this as well. If you're curious and want to find out more beforehand, there's lots of videos out there. Stress has a cost, and that cost can be very high. It can produce biological or physiological issues. For example, headaches, body aches, digestive issues, high blood pressure, coronary heart disease, all sorts of physiological things that can happen to your body due to exposure to long-term stress, and psychological consequences where it can lead to different types of mental health issues. Psychophysiological disorders are medical problems which are influenced by an interaction of psychological, emotional, and physical difficulties. And stress, once again, affects us in many ways. It can increase our risk for illness. It can hurt our recovery to disease. And it can reduce our ability to cope with future stress. Kind of wears us down and makes it harder to deal with things in the future. So learning how to mitigate these negative impacts of stress is very important. In other words, learning coping strategies is very important, and we will be looking at those in a future video. Interestingly, as I mentioned before, life changes are stressful, and these things can be positive things like getting a new house or getting married, starting a job that you're very excited and that you're going to love. All of these things are stressful events. So stress doesn't always have to be something negative. There is something called the Social Readjustment Rating Scale. And if we were doing a face-to-face class, I would hand this out to you guys. I kind of quit handing it out, though, over the last few semesters because people's stress level were so high, it was just making everybody depressed. So anyway, I wasn't handing it out. But you can find this online also if you search for it. The scale consists of 43 life events that require varying degrees of personal readjustment. It was developed by asking 394 participants to provide a numerical estimate corresponding to how much readjustment they felt each event would require. So each life event has a score or life change unit from 11 to 100, representing the perceived magnitude of life change they involve. So the death of a spouse was ranked the highest at 100, so 100 points or units for this, and divorce was ranked second highest at 73. So other things like maybe moving, even because you're excited and you just bought a house, that's still going to be like a 30 to a 50 on this rating scale. Research demonstrated that accumulating a high number of life change events or life change units within a brief time period is related to a range of physical illness, symptoms, and mental health problems, and is used to assess the amount of stress in people's lives. So it is a very interesting scale. And if you're interested in it, you can probably find a copy online and take it for yourself. All right, but take it with a grain of salt. Hopefully, as we go through this, we'll develop some coping skills and you will learn some good and healthy ways to manage your stress and reduce the negative outcomes. Another type of stressor are called daily hassles. Daily hassles are minor irritations and annoyances that are part of our everyday lives. They can lead to negative consequences such as distressed mood states, and they can build up, leaving us feeling very stressed. Frequency of daily hassles is a better predictor of physical and psychological health than the life change units. So basically, if you have, let's say that every day you're losing your car keys and you can't find them when you need to go to work, or you're not getting your stuff together, or let's say that you just have some hassles. Daily traffic is a hassle. Having to sit in traffic, having to leave 45 minutes early for work so that if there is an accident, you can still get there on time. That is a daily hassle. Having to cook every day is a daily hassle. So basically, these types of daily hassles can build up over time, increasing our overall stress level. Now, interestingly, and I don't think the book talks about this, but there is something called daily uplifts that can help mitigate the negative effects of hassles. So, for example, if you're stuck in traffic, you have all this going on, it might be a good idea to listen to a really good audiobook that you enjoy while sitting in traffic, because that is going to be a little daily uplift. It's a positive thing that you can do that can help undo part of the stress of having to sit into that traffic. So daily uplifts can help mitigate negative effects of hassles. So, just finding those good little positive things every single day, find positive things that you can focus on that can help reduce the bad impact of those daily hassles. On this last slide, we're going to take a quick look at other stressors. High stress occupations, difficult, demanding, or unsafe work conditions, occupations containing unpleasant elements, exposure to loud noises, harassment, threats, physical violence, constraint, constant frustration. So I was in a job like that. I was a mental health first responder and worked out with the police department, and we would go out on calls, and especially during certain periods of time when people were so negative to the police department, we were going out to try to divert from arrest, divert from hospitalization, yet we have people yelling at us and calling us names and doing things like that. And then you get there and you try to de-escalate the person, help them, help decide what they need to do. get them into therapy, all that kind of stuff. But anyways, a high stress occupation. A lot of jobs are high stress. Even if you are working, like for me personally, if I had to work at McDonald's or Jack in the Box, that would be incredibly high stress for me, because I guarantee I would not get an order right. I would get frustrated, I would get flustered, and I would have a hard time with it. So for me, that type of occupation would be super high stress. It would probably be more high stress than my work as a first responder, which I felt very comfortable doing, even though I was definitely going to have impact on those other people's well-being and the outcomes for them. Job strain is a work situation that combines excessive job demands and workload with little discretion and decision-making or job control. It's associated with an increased risk of physical problems. Job burnout, a general sense of emotional exhaustion and cynicism in relation to one's job. It occurs frequently among people in human services jobs. So social workers, teachers, police officers, those people often suffer from job burnout, because in those situations, oftentimes their caseloads and things are way higher than a normal human being can handle. And it's just continuous. And a lot of times they're dealing with situations that are very, sometimes disturbing and emotionally costly. Other stressors are close relationships. So your relationships with friends and family can be a source of stress, or they can be a source of support and can help you through those situations. The negative aspects of relationships that can cause stress include negative exchange and conflicts, lack of emotional support or confiding. In other words, you can't talk to any of them about anything. You can't feel safe to share with that person or with family members or close relationships, and a lack of reciprocity. So in other words, let's say that you're going to sit here and listen to that person's problem, try to be encouraging to them, and just try to be a source of support. Yet when you have a problem, that person has no time to listen to you. They'll just tell you how their problem is worse and how everything is about them. And so that's that lack of reciprocity, which makes that type of relationship very stressful. All right, so that's all we're going to cover in this particular video, and then I will make another one as soon as I can. These may not be the best, but once again, better than a poke in the eye.